Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to this meeting of the Transport Committee of the City Council here in Portsmouth. I'm Gerald Van Jackson and I chair this. So, housekeeping, fire alarm is real. Please assemble by Queen Victoria and sign out if you signed in. Please use the microphones and switch off when you've used them. And we'll see how we get through today. So let's just run through who is in the room. Councillor Ashmore.
Councillor Ashmore.
And why are you here, Councillor Ashmore?
Deputation on item 6, I think it is.
Thank you very much. It was an existential question, which I'm sure your children ask you frequently. Simon.
Councillor Simon Bowsher, I'm the Conservative spokesman for Transport.
Graham.
Councillor Graham Heaney, I'm the Labour spokesman for Transport.
Alison Harper from Democratic Services.
Kevin.
Kevin McKee, Parking Manager.
Felicity Tibbury, Assistant Director for Transport.
Jason Allen Brown, Principal Project Manager, Infrastructure.
Barnaby Fry, Principal Project Manager, Infrastructure.
Graham. Not Graham. George. Henry. Graham. Yes. Thanks, Brian.
Michelle Love, Safer Travel Manager. Natalia Łuszczyk, Active Travel Officer.
Aneta Skurtu, SEHRT Project Manager.
Thank you. I think that's everybody. Barney, if you nick the microphone that's in the gap and move it to you. Oh, okay, fine. Okay, folks, we've got no apologies that I know about. Any declarations of interest, folks? Brian, you've not taken out a controlling interest in Voice scooters recently? You've not bought a controlling interest in Voice scooters, have you? No, okay. Okay, so let's toodle on. Natalia, let's do School Streets phase 1.
All right, so School Streets Phase 1 Trial to Permanent Measures Report. The purpose is to report and provide overview of the school streets up to date, summarize the learnings from the 5 trials and the future approach implementing school streets in Portsmouth. So, recommendations. It is recommended the Cabinet Member for Transport approves to proceed with implementation of permanent school streets at St Jude's Church of England Primary School. Approves to proceed with the implementation of permanent school streets at Bramble Infant School and Nursery, and also approves to proceed with future school street trials under 18 months ETRO, Experimental Traffic Regulation Order.
Thanks, Natalia. Okay, it's been useful to see the feedback from the trials that there have been. And I know particularly at St Jude there's been years of local residents desperate to get rid of the cars sitting outside their houses, chucking out fumes. So I think it's interesting. It's we haven't gone as far with that one as I thought that people would want, but that's the point of listening to what residents have said. So, colleagues. Simon, Graham, Brian, any thoughts, or are we... Graham.
Yes, thank you, Gerald. I do have a couple of questions. In relation to 326, obviously we've talked about the 2 that are going ahead, and then there's a list of others, Meon, St John's, Kings. What's going to happen to those as they appear to have stalled in terms of any progress? Will anything happen to those, or are they going to be abandoned?
Okay, Michelle, on the top.
So those trials are being evaluated in the same way that the Phase 1 trials have been, and then a allocation will be put into the expression of interest for capital funding in the next financial year. and then we will look to progress with permanent school streets from those schools that have taken part in the trials.
And wish to have them.
Exactly, yeah. So we, at the end of each trial, we do consultation with the school, with residents and with parents, and obviously those that have reacted favourably to the school street and believe that it would benefit the school are the ones that we will then approach to be part of the second phase of the permanent school streets.
Okay. Thanks.
Second question is, do we have other schools who are not considered in the report actually expressing an interest in wanting to have a experimental TRO?
Do you mean a trial, Councillor Heaney?
Yeah.
Trial. We're obviously in discussion with schools a lot of the time to offer the behavioural change initiatives and assemblies that we do for schools. If they do express an interest, then we meet with them, have a discussion about whether or not a school street is appropriate. Some schools, because of their location, it isn't. So that avenue is always open to them. We're in discussions with a couple of schools at the moment. Arundel Court, we've already done some work with because it's part of the Superzone project. So we will be looking to further our work with them. And we've also been to Southsea Infants because they were very keen to understand what a school street was and potentially how it would work. So we've done initial engagement with those two schools as well.
Final question. In relation to St Jude's, given that this is going to be a signage-only scheme, how are we going to deal with enforcement?
The main enforcement is, actually the school streets are mainly enforced by the police. However, what we plan to do is extensive parent engagement, a lot of one-to-one support. We have very good examples from other local authorities, Oxford, for example, or Newcastle. They've done a lot of extensive parent engagement, which was very successful. And another thing is what we're trying to do is to encourage parents to park in a wider area. They already have the Park and Stride map. This is something what we're updating as I speak. And the school is aware of that. They are very happy about this.
But I think, Graham, if a signage-only scheme doesn't work at St Jude, then we've got the ability to go and revisit it and see if something else needs to happen. But I think it is sensible to do it on a gradual basis and just see if we can get that behavioural change in.
Well, I obviously hope it's successful, but I was just thinking about, but you answered the question, so that's fine.
Simon?
Thanks, Gerald. I've got a couple of questions. I mean, obviously, this is an individual school, an individual community type approach. 3.2.5, most schools could not continue with their trials beyond the initial trial period due to a lack of volunteers. So clearly there was some enthusiasm to start with, and obviously that waned over time when the commitment became onerous, shall we say. It's like one of these things, it starts out as enthusiastic and it sort of drops off. You've put a variety of things in there, such as free breakfast clubs and stuff that you're trying to do to support that. How are you going to make sure that the volunteers that effectively police this are going to be sustainable in the future, or are we going to end up recruiting more staff in the City Council to actually monitor these?
What we're trying to do for the next trials is actually don't have volunteers as much as possible, so the signs only option. The volunteer situation, there are always some volunteers from the parents or residents which can help us ad hoc. However, the future trials, we're unlikely to have the full engagement from the volunteers. When it comes to the school breakfast club and so on, those are offered by the schools themselves to parents who want to volunteer.
Just coming back on that, if I can, Gerald, and tying it into Section 5 permits. So we look like we're going to issue permits for some vehicles to get into an area where they may well already have residence parking zone permits. But 5.5 seems to hang this on the police as well to do that. And I'm just concerned, and I just want to know how we are thinking forward, that if the volunteers are going to drop off and there is a reliance on the police, who may well have better things to do in the eyes of the public, to police this, and it results to just signage, doesn't this run the risk of just evaporating?
So the report is about the experimental traffic regulation order and to go forward. As part of the trials, it's not just the signs and the physical measures. It's an entire programme of behavioural change that rewards walking to school through the Stomper app, that rewards children for engaging with the idea of, travelling a bit more actively. So although the signs, yes, and I completely take your point about the resources of the police, the idea is actually community engagement, so schools, parents, residents work together, because we know from head teachers that this is an ongoing issue outside most schools, and there is a large proportion of people that would like to see a solution, and that solution has to be led by them. So there's all sorts of other behavioural change type initiatives. Once we've changed the behaviour of people, and as well as the signs, there's also, we do park and stride maps. We've been out and done traffic counts and parking space counts to identify where there are spaces. So a lot of it is about getting that information out to people and to giving them the mindset that this will be beneficial to all. Because at the moment you have parents saying, it's too dangerous for my child to walk to school, so I drive them to school, and then they obviously are part of those parents that then try to park as close as possible to the school. So we're aiming for a wrap-around behavioural change as well as the physical measures.
Let's see how it goes. I remain to be convinced.
Brian?
First of all, I'm just worried about the head or chief steward. Are they council school appointed, or is it Mary Smith down the road says, "Oh, I'll run it for you"? And as we've seen here, where like the head steward gives up halfway through, the others don't turn up, etc. How's it going to be controlled? Because you do have to have those people there every morning. So has the school stroke council got any control over that, and are they trained?
The situation depends on the school. For example, at Meon schools, we had the rota has been dealt with by the admin staff. At St. John's Catholic School, we had the stewards mainly from the parents, so they basically organize themselves. So it really depends on the school. However, it works the best when it's parent-led or the school-led.
Okay, is that helpful, Brian?
Yeah, I'd sort of back up what Simon says. It can get very lackadaisical, and it's, I don't know, it's like when people turn around and say, "Oh, we're better than Southampton." Well, if Southampton's the worst city in the country, we should be better. And to turn around and say, "Other schools do this," I want to know what we're doing and how we're going to control it.
So I think it's, as Natalia said, it varies per school, but on those schools, so for instance, I know Meon, that the school were very active in terms of making sure that the rota was full of people, and that seemed to work well. But each school will probably come up with its own system, but we will give advice. Okay. All right, so I think the idea is here to see for these two as a start-off, see how we go. But it seems to me sensible to have to say yes to this, so that we can see how they go, and then other schools may wish to follow suit. Colleagues, you all right with that? Yeah, it is, and I've just said what my decision was, but I'm just asking you if you're okay with that. It is a committee of one, and we all unfortunately have to suffer the decisions of previous Labour governments, but such is life.
Can I reassure you that I do support the extension of School Street where they are?
Thank you.
So I'm happy to.
Excellent. And Simon doesn't know. Okay, let's move along.
Gerald, I support the principle behind it. I just want to know what the sustainability is going to be going forward with managing them.
Yes.
I think-
Okay.
Well, what we can say to that is this is an experimental traffic regulation order that we're asking for. So as part of that, there's 6-month consultation. So this is not the end of the process. Obviously, we take on board your concerns. This is something that we can do within the limitations that we have of budget and available resources from people. If it doesn't work, then we will obviously look at it again and see what else can be done. If there is a change in the law and we are able to do more like ticketing enforcement, then that's obviously a route that we could go down. But at the moment, that isn't an option that's available to us in Portsmouth. So as part of the 6-month evaluation of the ETRO, if it's not working, we will look at what can be done realistically to make it successful.
Okay. All right, let's move along to Barney.
Good afternoon. Hopefully the presentation should pop up in a second. Here today to talk about City Centre South and to get approval for the design for City Centre South. This one is the third and final one of 3 schemes around the city centre. The first 2, City Centre North and Lake Road, were approved earlier on this year, and it's part of the SEHRT, South East Hampshire Rapid Transit programme of works we have in place at the moment. Funded by the government, £25 million worth of what's called Transforming Cities Fund. So in terms of context, this is the area just to the north of the civic offices and between there and the station, and also the roundabout to the south of Commercial Road. The scheme split into 2 halves here. The first one at Station Road, as you can see from the photos here, and as I'm sure you're all familiar with this as well, it's a roundabout there. One of the major issues we have there is that zebra crossing on the bottom there, particularly around busy periods, lunchtime alike as well. You get a stream of people and they just hold up the traffic, buses, everybody around there as well. So the intention of that is for all 4 arms of that roundabout to be signalised, have pedestrian signalised crossings on there, and to convert the roundabout itself to a crossroads. Whilst in itself that may appear to sort of slow down buses, one of the aims of the Transforming Cities Fund is to improve bus reliability. What it actually does, by having signalised crossings in there, it actually helps the buses because they're not going to be held up by the issues I've described there about the zebra crossing. It gives more control, essentially. The second half of the scheme centres around the so-called pinch point in Isambard Brunel, that right hook turn or left hook turn. And I've got a feeling no one's probably a fan of this one, whether you're a pedestrian, a cyclist, a bus driver. I cross it, I cycle it, I
Person
Oh,
who
drive
designed it.
You seem to know who it is, but none of us seem to know who actually designed it, but some time back anyway. So the intention of this one here is to essentially widen Isambard Brunel to make it two-way at that point there, and to assist with pedestrians, have a pedestrian crossing on there as well, signalised pedestrian crossing. It'll involve where the loading bay currently is for what was the co-op, I can't remember what it's called now, which is centred just underneath the railway station there. It's moving that loading bay closer to where the shop actually is there. And just to provide, there we are. So that's where the existing bay is currently, and we're intending to move it to a relocated bay here and just to see as well the impact of the new carriageway there as well. A traffic regulation order was submitted early on this year, I think it was now. No objections were received, therefore we're all good to go on that one there. Come on to that in a second. Landscaping. The tree on the right-hand side there is delightfully named the Tree of Heaven. The original design actually said that tree needs to come down, but we looked at that and thought, that can't come down. There's no need for it to come down either. If we just, all we have to go and do to widen that carriageway is just a couple more metres to the west of that one there. We can actually widen the carriageway at that point there, keep 2 carriageways open, and keep the tree as well. The tree on the left-hand side, where Councillor Bosher pointed out the loading bay is going to be, that's that small tree there. Unfortunately, it's already suffered vandalism, along with another tree in the area as well. It will die within the next couple of years anyway. So that tree will come down to make way for the loading bay there. There's going to be some minor landscaping on the roundabout itself. And with the entire city centre area, in total we've taken down 30 trees in total. That's some of those trees by St Agatha's, by Charlotte Street, and a couple more around the Lake Road area. And what we're doing, we're planting 60 new trees, primarily in the Lake Road area, and a couple also in the St Agatha's church area as well. That's mitigation against the loss of trees there. So just to sort of summarise the benefits there, the intention of the scheme is to improve bus journey times, but also reliability, and to make it safe for pedestrians around the sort of Station Road area, but also Isambard Brunel, and improve quality. And finally, just a bit of a correction here as well. The paper that was originally sent out last week had an obsolete version of Appendix B, which is the Integrated Impact Assessment. That IIA referred to the road being closed to general traffic and just for buses and taxis. That was incorrect. A revised version was sent out earlier on this week, just to clarify, it is not going to be closed to general traffic. It's going to stay open as it currently is at the moment. That's it, thank you.
Okay, so my understanding is that we have a responsibility to try to make sure that the buses run on time, and both the current designs mitigate against that. The death trap outside the civic offices, I understand, was designed so that nobody quite knew who had the priority, and that was meant to keep everybody on their toes and aware. And maybe it works that way, but I think it's hugely dangerous. And having seen some of the things that happened there, I think that's been shown. I've seen so many buses sat pumping out fumes by the crossing by the station for so long, because people seem to arrive just as the other people have finished crossing, and so that they're continuous stopping for the buses to be able to move on. So I think this will help on both of those things. And I completely support the idea of keeping Isambard Brunel Road open to traffic, because I don't think it's going to hurt those bus times in any way at all. So we shouldn't be shutting roads if we don't need to. That would be my view. So should we go in a reverse order? Brian?
Sorry, totally agree with everything. No problems at all with it.
Right.
So.
Okay. Graham?
A couple of points, really. On the traffic lights that are going to be at the roundabout area instead of the roundabout. Now,
Yeah.
I mean, just to make a comment for something, I use that and walk it regularly, and it is an absolute nightmare. And I think the scheme overall is good, and I think it will make a real difference. Will the main bus route, which actually comes north to south, will that be given more priority than the other elements to help buses, or not? That's question one.
The answer to that is yes. It won't happen immediately. Once we get those traffic signals in place, there'll be some tweaking we can do around that to improve that. But yes, that's the intention.
And I was a bit confused when I read the first report, because obviously I saw the integrated impact assessment which said it was going to be a bus-only route. So I read the second impact assessment, which says in the second paragraph, this will be achieved by modifying the road layout on Isambard Brunel Road to allow two-way traffic flow for buses and taxis.
Buses, taxis and cars.
Well, the point is, it still says buses and taxis, but it doesn't say that. So the impact assessment still doesn't make it absolutely clear what's happening. So that clarification probably needs to be further clarified. The other little point I had was, it says, has any consultation been undertaken on this project? It says no, but on the other side, page, you've talked to the Hive and studied line, so I don't know, it's very confusing when you see these sheets about what you've done and what you've not done. So maybe someone needs to think about what answers you provide on those.
Okay, thanks. Simon?
Well, I've seen a number of schemes looking to address this particular area over all the years I've been here, and it seems to be an eminent improvement, particularly on this little pinch point just outside the civic offices. I mean, that started life as two-way, then it became this arrangement, for want of a better expression. It's good to see that common sense has prevailed and we're going back to essentially where we were. I'm also quite pleased, having seen this in a previous life, that we were looking to shut off Isambard Brunel Road and all around there to private vehicles, shall we say, make it only for buses and taxis. I don't think that would have been the right decision by any stretch of the imagination, so it's good that we've seen some sense on that. It is what it is, and I'm in principle, I'm supportive of it. I just hope that we're not sat here in 5 years' time going over it all over again. If I'm cynical about it, perhaps that's because I've been here for so long that I've seen that happen here quite a lot.
I hope it's going to be in imminently, Barney.
January.
Before
Start work in January.
finish work by the end of January. Beginning of February then. Anyway, thanks very much for that. I think everybody seems to think this is a significant improvement, so great, let's go ahead. Simon, I also saw the proposals that took private cars out of Isambard Brunel Road, which I have vetoed, because I didn't think it was the right thing to do, and it wouldn't have helped at all. And therefore that has gone. Okay, thanks very much indeed. Okay, parking charges on the seafront. Kevin, now, we have to hear sing. Well, maybe not sing, but to say thank you. As people will know, Kevin is stepping down as parking manager, but he's staying on to look after the rollout of the residence parking zones. So we're very grateful to Kevin for both things: A, looking after the parking service, and B, making sure that we roll out the RPZ scheme effectively. So thank you very much indeed. I suppose if it was your birthday we would sing, but I'm not sure there is a so long goodbye or whatever. Anyway, Kevin, seafront parking, and we have a deputation. So if you want to go first, then we have a deputation from a member of the public.
No, thank you very much, Councillor Vernon Jackson. It's been a pleasure working in Portsmouth, and the longer I've been here, the more I've grown to like and appreciate the city that you're all so passionate about. So
we look forward to you remaining in the employment of the council for the next 20 years.
Yes, so it's semi-retirement rather than full retirement. But item 5
Hold
is
on,
a
it's
report.
Brian's bookie.
Oh. I'm still not going to sing.
Don't tell me it's at the 4:30 at Kempton.
No, George wants to know if you're doing a decent job.
That'll be a short call.
Sorry. Item 5 is parking charges on the seafront, and the proposal is to balance up the charges that exist on the western side of the seafront and then introduce them on the eastern side of the seafront. We've been out to consultation on the traffic regulation order, and the report presents the comments that we've received back and addresses some of those, and the recommendation is to introduce that balanced charge along the seafront.
Okay, I've got deputation. Alison, are you going to read this or am I going to read this? Okay. This is from Eileen Shepherd. I would firstly apologise for this being an absentee deputation. Due to work commitments, I'm unable to attend in person. I'd like to take this opportunity to object to item 5 of the agenda, parking charges on the seafront east of South Parade Pier. Here are my reasons. Apart from Canoe Lake, there are no public transport giving close access to the easterly end of the beach. E-bikes and e-scooters are not available east of St George's Road, and with winter weather setting in, these are not viable or a safe option. Also, the expensive and unreliable bus service in this area doesn't encourage people to the east of the city. The only alternative is by car for cheap, safe and warm journeys. If they then have to pay to park, they're likely to choose destinations where they do not have to pay. This will reduce the number of people accessing the area, and beach will affect local trades whose footfall is dramatically reduced in the winter anyway. Report states that charges are to improve air quality to encourage more people to walk to the beach. Well, if it's raining and howling a gale, people are unlikely to walk to the beach and spend their money there. When there's no charges, people can drive down and park, see the view and be close to the businesses to be able to pop in without getting drenched or blown away. My main other objection to these changes are the enforcement of these charges will need to be on a very regular basis to be effective. As a resident of the area for 20 years, I know that this has not been the case and are likely to be the case due to the number of personnel available to cover the whole city. Independent businesses need all the customers they can get during the cost of living crisis, and to put these charges in place will only discourage customers to Portsmouth but cause parking congestion on local roads where it's already difficult to park. Also, due to lack of EV infrastructure, fast and slow charging in the area will not encourage the pollution-free vehicles to the area. Regards, Eileen Shepherd. Okay, colleagues, so shall we go, Graham, shall we go to you first?
Just a quick question. Have the ward councillors made any representations on this matter at all? I'm not aware that they have.
I have received none.
No, oh, okay. I mean, I suppose this is in part a revenue raising option. You know, City Council needs money, so raising charges is an obvious thing to do. I suppose the only thing that the objectors raised, which I think could be a problem, is that actually it just encourages people to find non-charging areas to park and push it into the residential roads around, which will put pressure on residential parking. But I can see the reason why you're doing it. But that's my only concern, is that there. Oh yes, the other question about enforcement on the car park, as to how regular that is. I don't know how regularly we have our civil enforcement officers visiting the car parks to check these things, and how they'll do it in the winter.
I mean, we have the same number of CEOs in the winter as we do in the summer, so it's probably but fewer cars, so we will be able to enforce it.
So they visit the car parks on a regular basis too. Yeah.
Kevin, do you want to say yes into a microphone that's on?
Sorry, yes, that's right, Councillor Heaney.
Just for the record. Brian?
I was basically going to say the same thing, and that's the wardens going up and down. How regular is it, and is it worthwhile, to be truthful? Presumably you've got the facts and figures there that it is worthwhile, but in reflection to the businesses, you know, you've got to try and form a balance. Not that I think there's many businesses there, but every small business counts. So what's the answer to that?
I think you're right, Councillor Madrick. It's a balance, isn't it, between and yeah, the recommendation is our suggestion on that balance.
And Brian, I have to say, I live down that end of the city, and both the Coffee Cup and the South Sea Beach are heaving. No, actually, through the year. Possibly, but there'll be lots of people. Anyway, Simon.
Thank you very much. Right, Kevin, reason for recommendation 4.2. The council wants to promote cleaner air and to encourage people to use other forms of mobility like walking and cycling and using public transport. Free parking does not make people reconsider their choice of transport. Well, I live in Farlington, and I like to go down to that part of the beach quite a lot. When I had a dog, I was down there on a regular basis. As I can't walk that far, or have the incentive to walk from Farlington to Eastleigh Seafront, there is no bus that goes there. what other forms of transport can I use other than my car to promote cleaner air and encourage people to use other forms of transport? And that could equally apply not just to Farlington, but to Drayton, to Copner, to Paulsgrove, to Cossam, to any of the northern wards, really.
It's not saying that everybody can find an alternative. It's those that can, and it encourages people to consider other forms of transport. And it's like all our parking charges. We need to set them at a rate that doesn't discourage everybody from coming, but encourages them to think when they can of other forms of getting there if they can use those other forms.
I'm sorry, I just don't wear that at all as a recommendation that we've actually got here, because if there was a bus, the number 23 bus effectively stops at South Parade, and that's the bus that I would use, which means if I wanted to go to Coffee Cup, I've still got a very long walk. I was going to say something else then, before I actually get there. So actually, what we're talking about is something that is going to disincentivise local people that can't get there. And I'd be very loath to get a taxi or an aquacard just to go down to the seafront. I don't think that's a good use of anything, to be quite honest. I mean, let's be frank, this was a budget line because the council needed money, and it was something that the Transport Department put forward as a revenue idea, and I'm a bit disappointed that we haven't been honest about it and included that in the recommendations.
So when I've had, over the years, several representations from people with businesses at the other end of the seafront who have said to me, Gerald, why is it fair that there are parking charges on our end of the seafront all the way through the year, but not on the other end of the seafront? Why are you discriminating in favour of one set of businesses against another set of businesses? And there used to be a really good reason in terms of servicing the machines, that we needed to do that. But now, as I understand it, that's not necessary, and at the end we expect people to pay on their phones. So I think there is a strong argument to say that you have to have a level playing field between the businesses at each end of the seafront. And at the moment, that doesn't exist.
That might be true if you had a public transport system that actually served the whole length of the seafront, but you actually don't at this moment in time, Gerald. So if you want to make a level playing field with regards to parking charges, you need to put a level playing field in there for public transport at the same time. But to come back to a point that was raised earlier on about the enforcement, I did ask about the enforcement, ironically, not on the back of this, but several months ago, about what is done down there for all the overnight vehicles that park there, and it was, well, we don't really go down there. The irony being that there are Facebook pages where people ask where's the best place to go and park overnight, and Eastleigh Seafront is one of the popular. You want to go there because they never enforce it. So, and even then with the times you're putting in, it's not going to address that issue. Let's be honest, this is all about revenue raising, and it's not about promoting cleaner air whatsoever.
Okay.
And I opposed it in the budget, and I stand by that now.
Okay. I think we'd all agree that the council has suffered enormous cuts to the money available to support public transport over the last 13 years. And therefore money has to be found from other sources, and we would all like to have a public transport system that met everybody's needs, but unfortunately the cuts over the last 13 years by the government mean that that's not possible, and we just have to live in the world of reality. So this is my call, and my call is that we're going to do this.
Can I ask a quick question?
Of course,
Sorry,
Graham.
It's just have something you said, and I just wanted to clarify. You said that one of the reasons we can do this is the fairness bit was about because we don't need to collect any money from parking machines and we can all do it through our phones. Is it the case that our parking charges on the seafront and in this car park are going to be done by some by phone only, or will there be other options? Because not everybody does it through their phone. So, is it going to be
I think Kevin
cash?
can. Well, at the moment, if you park on the seafront near the cricket club or the 10th hole, you're encouraged to do it by phone, and there are signs on the walls there. Kevin, what are we doing in terms of physical things where people can put physical bits of money in?
We're not changing the payment methods. There is a bit of the seafront where we don't have any machines because there isn't, but it's a very small bit of the seafront. The majority of people do pay by phone, though, so and that's a shifting, an increasing proportion.
That may be true, but there are people who still pay by card or by cash, and you go to places like Chichester where you can pay by card or cash, and we shouldn't exclude other forms of payment and make it compulsory for people to use phones.
That's why we're not doing that. Thank you. And Simon, thank you for reminding me about this being in the budget, and that we all unanimously supported this in the budget across all party lines. So it would be inconsistent for us to say that we've changed our minds now. So, okay, thank you very much indeed for that. Let's move along. And we have got where have we got to now? RP says, the bit that, sorry, Councillor Ashmore, hello. So, Kevin, what page do we start on, sorry?
I think it's page 79.
79,
Is that right?
lovely.
I've got a printout.
Lovely, no, it's here. So, Kevin, this is you again. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And this will continue to be you.
And as well as a number of other things, I think that Felicity's got in line for me, so got in store. So, yeah, I mean, this is we're coming to the end of the previous programme, and this is a proposal for a new RPZ programme. The age-old problem is which area you do, and if you do one area and spend a lot of time in it, you're not doing the others. So the proposal here is to attack it on a number of fronts so that everybody has a chance to, or the main areas have a chance to have an RPZ and be subject to consultation. And so the proposal is to use external consultants to provide us with the backup that we need to do it on three work streams, one in the east, one in the centre, and one in the north. And the recommendations are in the report.
Okay, thank you. So we have two deputations. Councillor Ashmore.
Thank you very much, Chair. Basically, thanks to anyone who's been working on parking in Portsmouth. It must be a thankless and unforgiving process. It's obviously a very big issue, living where we do. Obviously, I'm here as a ward councillor. As the streets in the area to the north of St Mary's Church, they've been mentioning parking as one of the top priorities for quite a few years now. And they've been wanting to be asked about residents' permits there, and if they support it or not, and what that would look like. Now, as it stands, there's been an unequal situation in Fratton Ward for a while now, because the roads in the south of St Mary's Church down to Fratton Bridge, they've had residents' parking zones, and it's left the other ones north of the city, north of St Mary's, wanting their say too. So I think this idea of a kind of rolling plan of which areas get surveyed, I think that's a good one. It means that those who neighbour roads with permit parking will know that they will be on the list for consultation afterwards. And I think that's important, and I think it's important we're led by the residents, and that the final say is always up to them rather than us imposing on them. And I think that's one of the reasons why the areas mentioned in Fratton Ward didn't get surveyed earlier, because there was a proposed parking zone, I think for HC parking zone. The residents didn't want it, so it didn't go ahead, which meant that the Fratton roads next to that didn't need to be consulted straight afterwards. And I think that's only fair if we're being consistent with this. So I'm glad to see them on this one now. As I say, I think it's important as ward councillors we respond to our residents' wants and needs there, and it's important that this plan is carried out in instalments as is being proposed here, because some people have said, what about having a city-wide vote, you know, all or nothing kind of thing, but that could result in a situation where, you know, areas that have got driveways or garages to park their vehicle could then outvote those in tightly packed terrace places who don't have those kind of things. So I think the way it's being done is a fairer way of doing it. It might not be the quickest way, but I think it's a fairest way of doing it. And like I say, parking's always a top issue in those roads when I'm with door knocking up that area. So I'm just hoping that this gets approved today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And just to say, Councillor Stuart Brown's also been in touch with me to say he's supportive of this. And then I've got a written deputation from Councillor Barrett, who unfortunately has to be working today. I welcome the opportunity for residents of Milton Village to be consulted on a residents' parking zone for the area. For a long time now, we've had a significant amount of people ask myself, Councillor Vernon Jackson-Pitt and former Councillor Dowling on the street, on doorsteps and via email if they'd be able to have the opportunity to have their views heard on this issue. So far as the majority of residents south of this area decided they would not like to have a zone, the northern part of Milton lost the opportunity to be asked their views as to whether they'd like a zone as the rolling programme moved on to other areas of the city. Yet they've all felt the pressure on them and a zone to the west was granted. This is the next logical step forward and means that whether for or against, our residents will now have the chance to express what their preference would be for this area. Please do allow this to progress forward for Milton Village, and I look forward to hearing the views of residents there. Okay, I think that's all the deputations there. So, who would like to go first? Simon?
Yes, thank you very much, Joe. I just thought a bit of clarity from Councillor Ashmore, and I think he's referring to the GC one that's listed here, or are you talking about a new one? The one that's listed. GC, okay. I mean...
That's had an informal survey.
That's right, yeah, because we've got a programme in 4.5 that I can see here.
Yeah.
My only concern, and perhaps it's the way that Councillor Barrett's one is worded, and as a Milton councillor who probably declared an interest, but I missed it about this, is Councillor Barrett talking about an area which is not included on this?
No, NB.
She's talking
November.
about NB. Ah, okay, that's fine, because it wasn't overly obvious to me. I mean, my view is, and always has been, that when there is a published programme, that the programme is stuck to as we go forward, because I've seen in the past in traffic and transportation decisions where an area has suddenly had a residence parking zone and you get the displacement that moves it across the road or up the street or something where people didn't have a problem, and then they're suddenly saying, oh, we need one now, and they've been squeezed in the programme because of that displacement, which meant that other people that have been patiently waiting for a number of years, and one of them, although not in my ward, I was heavily involved in when I was the cabinet member, was Mulberry Lane. That's when this one started in 2018, and the main protagonist in Mulberry Lane that wanted this died 2.5 years ago, so he hasn't actually seen the residence parking zone in his lifetime. And a part of the reason why they came to me in 2018 and here we are in 2023 is because other things with displacement parking in the south of the city got squeezed in and they got moved backwards. So this is resident driven, and I will always support something that's resident driven. All I am saying to you, Councillor Vernon Jackson, as I said to Councillor Stagg in the past, is please stick to the programme. So anybody that says, no, I don't want one, and suddenly decides I do want one, don't get bumped up the list. They join the end of the list so that everybody across the city gets an equitable shout at it and don't get preferential treatment because they happen to have the councillor in charge of traffic and transportation in their particular ward.
Okay. Brian?
No, the only thing I've got to say there is these parking zones, etc., etc., etc. I said it once before, a little while back, about Eastfield Road, when they was asked whether they wanted the little cutout there and flowers put in there. Each resident was asked, and they could say, yes, we do, and no, we don't. The lady next door, bless her little heart, she wanted a parking space taken away and flowers put in front, and she died before it was all finished, and the new people walked in, and there's husband, wife, and a 18, 19-year-old girl, and there's 3 cars to put in there. So there's no place to put them. So I think we've got to be very careful on what we agree on. But I think every resident should be asked, and it should go that way. And what Simon said, if they say no and change their minds, down the bottom of the list, they don't get squeezed in again. Thank you, Chair.
Graham?
Thank you. Yeah. I have a question about paragraph 313. It's slightly oddly worded, I have to say. So the council has been unsuccessful in appointing sufficient additional resources to support this work in the area. I presume they mean additional staff?
Yes, because we've lost them.
Yes,
and we're now having to employ them again indirectly through the private sector.
Yeah, no, so it's slightly odd, and it says due to national resources, and it says this report therefore is deliver the programme by external resources. Again, a slightly odd phrase, but presumably by consultants.
Yeah.
And that is going to cost us presumably a lot more than it would have cost us if we were employed. Right? Okay. You say that we haven't been able to employ additional resources because of skill shortages, but are we offering a reasonable deal for someone to come here? Because presumably other authorities are as well, and we're losing out. Are we losing out because we're not offering a good employment package? Obviously, I don't need to go into deal. This is a sort of broad question.
I have to be careful
Yes,
in
I know.
terms
Yes.
of.
Yeah, I'm
so
not-
I think in recent times we have been successful about getting people with the right level of skills and experience to apply and to join us from other councils. But we're not able to compete where there are personal circumstances that mean that families need to move to different parts of the country. But Simon is right that the extra parking revenue from the seafront will help deliver what residents want, which is why we all voted for it. But we can offer a financial reward for people to work here. We're not always able to affect issues of the heart.
Fully understand that. We've tended to be quite reliant on good quality individuals who do sometimes leave.
Yeah.
Can we do more to train other staff who could take over or be appointed, up to take on those roles rather than leaving it until they all disappear and they say, oh my God, we've got no one to do it? Good.
Yes, no, I think you're absolutely right. And it's not just in this area, it's across the council, is training up our own, because sometimes it's very difficult to recruit to lots of different things. So I know Peter Bolf and the lawyers, they're taking on people without them going to law school, because then they can train them up to keep them here, and means that people don't leave university with huge debts.
I have another question about the programme. I do endorse what Councillor Bosher said about Mulberry Lane and about the delay that's happened around that. And I do think we need to have more regard, because even though it may be a small area, it's important to those people and we should treat them fairly. So I do actually agree with that point. In relation to the programme that's being put forward, there's something really curious about the way in which the area in Milton has been carved up, if I can put it in those respects. There's NB, Loxley Road, and there's NC, Kingsley Road. And if you look on the map, NB is north of NC. So what is happening is that NB is going to be consulted and presumably formally agreed a scheme if it was agreed by residents. And the people in NC might find themselves hemmed in by a residence parking scheme that has been approved. Surely the logic would be to cover the whole area and to consult on the whole area if you think that there's enough demand from residents, and do it as one scheme. That would be good, obviously, because it wouldn't mean that people were trapped below a scheme, which is obviously the potential knock-on effect if it was agreed. It would certainly remove that. But also it'd be easier to do one traffic regulation order rather than do two. It doesn't seem to me to be very logical.
So the dividing line there is the canal, because there's effectively only one road that crosses the canal. So that the two areas are distinct. You don't move from one to the other, because you can't, because the canal's in the way. The reason that it's in that order is people in NC have been consulted in an informal survey and said no. And therefore, it's not right to go back to them and say, oh, you gave us the wrong answer, we're going to make you do it again. So it's, everybody west of NB is already got a residence car parking zone, and therefore, on the principle of the rolling programme, they should be consulted. If they say that they do want it, then it may be that people in NC will change their mind. But it shouldn't be us saying to people, you gave us the wrong answer before, we're going to keep asking you until you give us the right answer.
Well, that is potentially what you're doing.
Well, no.
I'm sorry.
It's specific.
The logic of the decision, you potentially implement a scheme in NB,
Yep.
and then you go back to NC. Now we've hemmed you with a scheme. You want to think about this again, don't you? You know, I mean, it's literally amazing that what you've done there.
But
you should consult the whole area and then make a decision.
But it is to put those two areas together and do it as one would not be logical areas, because they are divided. You can't. It's not a thing where there are roads that flow between the two, because it's where the canal used to be.
Is it proposed that the area to the east of that will be consulted about residence parking scheme, because they're the next area involved, aren't they?
But that's the sea.
No. There are a whole series of
end of
roads.
Loxway Road.
NB, look at NB, look
Yes,
at NB.
I am.
There are a whole series of roads running to there. To the
Moorings
end.
Way.
I can't see, Moorings Way, because it's very small. I can't see all the names of the roads, but that is, so, you know, this is going to be the next area.
I don't know, because of Moorings Way always has got, as I understand it, off-street car parking for I think almost every house anyway, because it's much more recent development. So I don't know, and it'll be for our successors to decide.
Point, and you'll make the decision, so there we are.
Thank you. Kevin, thank you very much indeed. Let's get on with it. All done by the end of October. Not that I don't do patience.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. And I know residents will be very pleased that they get the chance to decide what is right for their areas. All right, we come then to the Simon Bosher Memorial Report. On spending £250,000 in Drayton and Farlington. You want more? Okay, Michelle, is this you? You're loitering.
I am loitering with intent. It is mine, yes.
Excellent.
Thank you, Councillor Vernon-Jackson. So,
Mr. Ashmore, do you want to lift home?
You're not driving. What about other modes of transport?
Mr. Ashmore is using that. He's walking home in the rain.
Think about the air quality.
If it was an electric car, I do. Kerry. Kerry? No, it's not Kerry, it's Michelle. Kerry
Yes.
happens to be the person who's on the report.
Kerry is our director, interim
Who
director.
I think I've met,
Excellent. I'm glad to hear it.
but only think.
Okay. Well, we can discuss that outside of this meeting.
Okay.
We'll go back to the report. So the report is Speeds and Casualty Reduction Measures 23-24, so the local transport plan allocation from the budget that was awarded in February 2023. We're seeking the recommendation that the Cabinet Member for Transport approves the proposed spend from the Casualty and Speed Reduction budget of £250,000 in the area of Lower Farlington Road, Havant Road Junction Scheme. This scheme was originally identified as a site of interest during analysis of casualties and accidents. Concerns have also been raised by local residents and ward councillors regarding the speed of traffic along Lower Farlington Road. It's subject to a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit and a width restriction to prevent HGVs from using the road as a shortcut to and from the industrial area to the south from Havant Road. Traffic survey data was undertaken in September 2022, and it showed that the 85th percentile speed, that's the speed at which 85% of the drivers travel at or below, was recorded at 31 miles an hour southbound and 32 miles an hour northbound. This is in excess of the prosecution threshold for a 20 mile an hour speed limit and obviously 10 miles over the advertised speed limit. Casualty data can be found in Appendix A of the report, and this report seeks approval to proceed with detailed design, community engagement and implementation of the scheme. If there are additional TROs required to implement the scheme, then these will be brought back to this meeting if there are objections to those TROs when advertised. Happy to take questions.
Thanks. Simon?
All I can say is about time too, to be quite honest, about this one. I'm actually delighted it's finally got here. It's been one of those roads. I have 3 or 4 roads in the ward, of which this is one of them, which has been a problem child for about 20 years. And I think representation from ward councillors is a polite way of putting it, that we've been nagging the heck out of Transport about this road for a very, very long time. I would ask one thing, if I can, and that's you're seeking to spend all this money on the junction at the top by Tesco's, the Havant Road, Lower Farlington Road junction. If you look at the map on map 1, it's at the top where that's going to be. But if you go down that road, before you get to that sort of bend, you've got a road on the right-hand side, Old Farm Way, if that's where I'm suggesting. So you go through 2 crossroads, 1st and 2nd Avenue, and then you've got a left turn as you're going down, which is a bendy road going into the bird estate. That junction there is a complete and unmitigated nightmare, and it has a sort of a crude pinch point there as well. So it's got some buildings there. Frankly, those buildings are about as much use as a chocolate teapot, because we get articulated lorries going down that road, and because that pinch point has been designed to allow for emergency vehicles, fire engines or whatever on a similar axis, they can just go straight on through it, and that is a problem area. So I would ask that when you are looking at improvements, could you please look down at the bottom to see what can be done there. Part of the problem we have is that this road actually is flagged up on HGV's sat-navs as an alternative route coming down from London. You come off the A3 roundabout along the Havant Road and turn left down this particular road. And they do it on a regular basis, because it's literally 2 minutes from where I live, and you see it all the time, particularly with foreign lorry drivers trying to fight their way down there, complete chaos. And of course, then they sort of get down to the bottom, and then they start trying to do 3-point turns or trying to force their way through that pinch point. Can we look not just at the junction, but see whether there's something that can be done further down, because it's not going to eliminate the speeding just by changing the junction. Once they're past that junction at the top, they will belt on down into the industrial estate. So we need to look at something holistically down that road if it's at all possible. But I appreciate all we're doing here is approving the finance, and therefore a scheme will come forward.
Michelle, can I ask, and that's what Simon says sounds sensible, is if we do get granted the powers to have cameras here, could we have a weight restriction on this road enforced by cameras, so if any HGVs do go down, they get a thumping great fine?
That's certainly something that we can investigate. My knowledge of weight restrictions at the moment is that the vehicle would have to stop within the weight restriction zone, and that is when the enforcement kicks in. If they are driving through, however, as I said, this is coming from when we did Anchorage Road, but I take your point. the buildings we would definitely have to look at. Are they council buildings? Is it private? Oh, build out. Sorry, I thought you said buildings. I was having mental pictures of demolishing things. Build outs, right. Okay. So yes, we can definitely, obviously the money, as you say, is allocated to address the casualty issues, but a holistic approach makes perfect sense. So we would definitely look at what could be done. I would sort of take you back to your point about the emergency services. If that is the original reason why that road width was kept, then we are going to have to look, that road width will have to stay the same. But obviously things have moved on since those build outs were put in. So therefore, if there is additional measures that we can take, either within the budget or with additional funding to make best value while they're already working on that road, then we will do so.
Okay. And so the point of this report is just to approve a funding allocation and then for some detailed design to come back to consult with local ward councillors.
That's exactly right, yeah.
Okay. Graham?
Yeah, I mean, I have no problem with this. I know Councillor Bosch has raised this issue on many occasions, and yeah, I'm glad he's been able to get this through, and that's good.
Brian?
I didn't know anything about what Simon mentioned, but it'd be sensible to do the two at the same time. So, yeah, but 100% agree getting it done.
Yep. Okay.
Brian, you'll be delighted to know that this junction is one where we managed to get a scooter rack removed, okay? Because of the danger of it. It was our one success, the scooter rack did not go in.
Good. It might come back again, though.
My vote next time.
That's an increasingly few people who do. Okay, folks. It seems a sensible thing to do to go ahead with this and get this done. Thank you very much indeed. Felicity, is there anything else you need us to be doing? Okay. That then is the end of this meeting. Thank you very much indeed, everybody.